So for even a pretty experienced beer geek, I think it's fair to say that when we walk into an independent bottle shop, it's a bit overwhelming, right?
Mate, it can be absolutely bewildering, the amount of stock everywhere.
Yeah, hundreds, maybe thousands of different beers. The person behind the bar or behind the till might not be the most useful, might be a little bit snooty. You don't know what's fresh, what's not, what's cool, what's not, what's hip, what's not. Well, this video, it might not tell you what's hip, because look at it, but it might be able to help you walk out of that shop with the absolute best beer possible. So I don't know about you, Brad, but I spend much of my life browsing shelves in independent bottle shops.
Oh, I wonder what kind of shelf you were going to say there, Johnny. I thought it might have been something a bit salacious.
Well, no. I mean, there's something a little bit sexy and naughty about a dipper, but I don't love beer quite that much. So yeah, we're walking into these bottle shops and there's so much choice, so much variation, and so much marketing just thrown at you.
Yes.
That we often don't know where to turn. Even me, sometimes I am, as you would say, bamboozled.
It's hard to know what to do for the best, isn't it? Like, I think what we need is some golden rules, Johnny, right?
Some golden rules, and that's what we're about to give you. So we're going to go through that journey of being in an independent bottle shop and talk you through the best decisions to make so that you get the best from the beer that you're buying. So, let's walk through the door. So, bit Wayne's World, Johnny. We're walking through the door. I'm coming inside. Rule number 1, skip the shelves. Straight to the fridge. I'm glad the walking stopped. Yeah, so the first thing to remember is that beer is an artisan, unfiltered, unpasteurised product, almost across the board. So anything that isn't refrigerated is going to be lower in quality, right?
Yeah.
It's not the brewer's fault. They put this beautiful product out there and they just hope it's well cared for. But if it's not kept in the fridge, then that flavour is going to degrade.
Now, there are some exceptions, right?
There are definitely some exceptions. So, anything that you might want to age or anything that's bottle conditioned might be very happy at room temperature.
Belgians?
Belgian beers, imperial stouts, barley wines.
All the big guys.
Big sours.
Big guys.
Yeah. Those kind of beers can very happily be on the shelf, so don't ignore those guys. But if you're looking at lagers, IPAs, pale ales, like those quick sours, like the fruited sours, those have to be in the fridge to be at their best. And that's not to say, because we don't always have access to shops that care that much, it's not to say completely skip the shelves, but if there's fridges, you go to the fridges.
Fridges first. We're walking, Johnny.
You're walking.
I'm walking. I've walked straight over to the fridge.
Yeah.
I've got my crispy boy out of there. What am I going to do with it, Johnny? It's delicious. It's cold. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to look at its undercarriage. What's the BBE?
Exactly. What's the best before end, the enjoy by, the best before? That's the next important thing. Now, before we get to that, Brad also raised an interesting point in that probably you're going to be looking for a can. Because if you flip this upside down, all you're going to do is let all of the yeast sediment out. So don't do that to a bottle. Look around the neck or the cap. Now, freshness has been kind of fetishized, right?
Yes.
So we all know now that craft beer has to be kept cold to be kept delicious. But if it is kept cold, those dates aren't quite so important.
Okay.
Right?
So basically it's like keeping food in the fridge or whatever. It preserves it a bit longer.
Exactly.
Right.
So if you got there's a nice New England IPA and it's in the fridge and, you know, it's only a month away from its best before, that's probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
However, if you go up to the shelf because there were no fridges and it's a month before its best before, that's probably not worth picking up.
Maybe walk on by that. Bad boy.
And now YouTube's taken the monetization adverts off. IPAs, particularly New England IPAs, you kind of want it to be not more than a couple of months old, like 3, 4, 5 months at an absolute push. West Coast IPAs, pretty similar. Lagers, pretty similar. But outside of that, you can start to flex it, and breweries will start to put like up to a year on those dates. So I walked into a bottle shop just before here when we were buying some beers for today's filming, and I picked this off of a warm shelf. Now, before I did that, I was disappointed to see this on a warm shelf. Before I did that though, I checked the BBB, and it was end of June.
Mate, it's tasting pretty fresh.
Yeah.
Now, when you said June, we're in July now.
Yeah.
That was
That was the canned on date.
Right.
So that's another thing that you can look for. If it, the best before won't necessarily tell you how old that beer is.
Yeah, because that might be up to a year, let's say.
Exactly, yeah. So actually looking at the canned on date or bottled on date is another really good indication of how old a beer is, and therefore making that judge about how old it should be.
I'm not walking in this one. I just did that to throw you.
You're still there looking at the can.
But rule number 3 is, Johnny, we're already there.
Yeah.
And this relates to our video about 4 hard truths. Watch it here. But rule number 3 is independence, mate. We've got to shop independent. We've got to support independence.
Absolutely. If you want your money to really support the beer industry, the best way of doing that is to buy either independently, so small independent businesses, or buy ethically. So there are some bigger companies that act more ethically than others, and we can give you some advice in the comments below about who it is. But buying ethically is the key thing, because there's also some arsehole small breweries. Yeah. Let's be honest.
And when we're talking about buy independent, this is bottle shops too, right? We're saying don't buy in the supermarket. Support diversity.
Yeah.
Support small business.
So you should say rule 0 is go into your independent bottle shop, not your supermarket.
Right, Johnny. Rule number 4. This one's a little bit more esoteric. Beer styles.
Beer styles.
Yeah.
We've interpreted some modern styles in a strange way. So what you should then start to look at for this rule and the next rule is whether the brewery know what they're talking about. If they're going to say this is a West Coast IPA, and then they talk about juicy, or if they say this is a New England IPA, but it's 5.1%, or if they say this is a Czech Pilsner, but at no point do they mention decoction, caramel, SARS.
So what you're saying, Johnny, is the brewer brewing something to style, or are they just sort of trading off of these terms that are a bit airy-fairy and things that we kind of know we're looking out for?
Yeah, I mean, there's this interesting phenomena among brewers, particularly like larger brewers. We see all these like macro brewers, regional brewers in the UK trying to produce these styles that are named after the trendy stuff they know. But they've gone to a focus group and gone, well, would you buy this beer? And, most people have gone, well, no, I wouldn't buy this IPA at 6% with all these hops. It's too bitter and all this kind of stuff. So they've gone, right, well, we'll call it West Coast IPA, but we'll make it 4%, and we won't really dry hop it. Yeah. But we also won't really hop it in the boil either, because that'll be too bitter. So you end up with this completely compromised thing that has nothing to do with the original style, but they're calling it a West or an East Coast IPA or an American Pale Ale. And you're like, this has nothing to do with this. So you can look at the name, looking at the specs, you can see whether these brewers are trying to brew to style and trying to brew something delicious, or whether somebody in a suit or somebody in a focus group has gone, I'm not sure I'd drink that.
Yeah, like bandwagoning.
Bandwagoning, exactly. Yeah.
I'm just going to keep walking, Johnny.
I think you're at the same can.
Keep walking. I'm still at the same can, but I'm getting a jog on now. So rule number 5. Rule number 4 was all the bad stuff. Rule number 5 is all the great stuff. The things you want to be looking out for on your bottle or your can.
Yeah.
You want to be seeing, does it have all the varieties of hops on there, the processes, all that kind of beautiful stuff that shows that they know what they're on about.
Yeah, and that they care about what they're on about. Yeah. So, lots of craft beer cans are very minimalist in terms of what information they'll give you. But there's definitely stuff that you can look out for on the can that is a good sign.
Signifiers.
Exactly. So consider, say, this beer, Bosco from Pressure Drop. They've given us the hops, Mosaic Amarillo. They've given us tasting notes, zest, caramel, pine. They've given us serving tips, keep cool, drink fresh. They've told us that there's crystal malt in there. And that kind of stuff, which is really useful so that you know what you're going to taste, and it shows that they really understand what they've made.
So basically, it's like having a beer sommelier on the can.
On the can.
I'm gonna start walking. Rule number.
Finally, on the last golden rule, he's like, you know what, that was a silly idea.
Getting puffed out now. Rule number 6, Johnny, and this one goes against everything the channel stands for. Literally, it's the use of the word craft unnecessarily.
Yeah. So if I could have the craft beer channel's time again, I'd probably call it like the good beer channel.
Maybe.
Partly because there's so many companies with the initial CBC.
That's a problem.
GBC, maybe there's fewer of them.
Yeah.
But craft has been co-opted as a marketing term. So rather than being an approach to life, an approach to brewing, an approach to artisan production, it's become the term you use when you want to elevate your brand slightly.
It's shorthand, I think, in everyone's mind for like, yeah, that's a quality product.
Yeah. or an independent product as well. Like all these things where that's just not true. Craft does not mean good. Craft does not mean independent. No. Craft doesn't even mean small batch anymore. Like craft is both meaningless and so loaded with meaning.
Yeah.
that it's really hard to know what it means.
To us, it means the world to us, but also it means like it's a worrying.
So if somebody's using craft in a small way on a can, then that's cool. You know, if they go, we're a craft brewery in North Wales, that's like, cool, that's fine. And if they're like, we're a craft brewery producing craft beer with a speciality in craft IPA, then you need to put that can probably back on that warm shelf where it came from with its month left in date and just walk away. Because people who use craft as a marketing term are not always the people who use craft as a process and an ideal.
I feel genuinely like I'm well armed to go in and get the best for my money, get the crispiest, delicious beers that I can get, the freshest beers, cold chain, cold store beers, independent, ethical, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all almost boils down to the authenticity you feel on that can. If you don't know that brewery or you don't know that style, them giving you all the information you could possibly need and avoiding, you know, flagrant marketing terms is a great sign. And if it came from the fridge, you can't go too far wrong.
Too wrong.
And I know I dissed people. I said they might be snooty. The people that work in bottle shops, you know, whether they're a bit snooty or not, like that's their passion. It's rare to find somebody in an independent bottle shop that isn't there because they bloody love beer. So always ask questions. Ask too many questions, to be honest. And that's how you'll walk away with the absolute best that you can. So there's lots of other videos you can watch from us that will help you with that, like should I age this beer? 4 hard truths about craft beer, which help you buy in an ethical manner. And then things, all of our like what even is, where we can learn about style. So do check out those videos coming out after the bam bam pa gow. At some point I'm just going to substitute the actual music for me saying that. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bam bam pa gow.